we are now going to move into protecting ourselves, and I think your conversation, Nathan, is perfect for leading into this. So we've seen how scams unfold. We've seen how that infrastructure within and outside of scams is built. Now, to close the event, we're going to talk about prevention. We heard Joni Pirovich say earlier, prevention is better than the cure. And there's a quote that I like to say, an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. And that's a really old, I think, famous quote. So now we're going to jump into a session with Michal Knapkiewicz from Sigma Prime. Sigma Prime are members of DECA, and they have helped us in the past and are always there as our wingman when it comes to personal device security and security in the workplace. So you have, Michael, welcome. Is it Michal or Michael?
It's actually Michal.
Michal.
That's right, yeah.
Michal, you have over a decade of experience in cybersecurity, so I'm thrilled to have you here. So you're going to cover how compromised devices enable scams, or how to protect your devices from being led into a scam, and some of the things that Australian consumers should look out for. So welcome to the stage.
Thank you very much. Let me just try to share my screen. I've got a little bit of a presentation. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see that.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much, Amy, for the warm welcome. Very excited to be here. Thank you, everyone. So as Amy mentioned, we're going to be talking about how to protect ourselves a little bit better from the scams and general hacks. So this particular talk will be on your device security. So your device is the front door, while personal device security is the first line of defense online. So just a little bit of an intro, and thank you, Amy, for introducing me already. But my name is Michal Knapkiewicz. I'm a director at Sigma Prime, which is a blockchain security and research firm. I've personally spent over a decade working as a security consultant and ethical hacker, and I've helped securing large financial institutions and governments in Australia and globally. This is going to be more of a practical presentation on real threats and how we best can protect ourselves and mostly develop secure habits. So you don't necessarily be super technical, just very simple habits go a long way in this case. So hope to walk you through all of that. So I just want to start with a simple question. If someone had unlocked your phone for 5 minutes, what could they do? Just think about it for a second. We all use our phones and devices daily, right? Every time. A lot of people are addicted to their phones. We have access to a lot of sensitive information, or personal information, banking, everything on it, right? So if someone got access to it, what could they do? Well, they could do quite a lot, right? So let's talk about it a little bit more. So with your devices, you can think of it as a gateway to your identity online, right? Whether it's your mobile phone, whether it's your laptop, this is a device that you use to essentially go online, connect to the internet, and access all of your information. So, as I mentioned, access to sensitive information is the main thing that we're worried about here. So, things like emails, there's a lot of sensitive information that is being shared over email. Obviously, emails are used for logging and registering to certain websites and resetting passwords and so on. So if someone has access to your email, they have access to a lot already. Obviously, your messages, your passwords, your saved passwords, your banking and payments, your photos, social media, and even we can think of home automation and car access. So for example, Teslas, they don't even have a key, right? They just use your phone to unlock it. With your home automation, we have home security cameras, which you can access from your phone as well. If your phone gets compromised, all of a sudden a potential attacker would have access to all of that. It's essentially a master key to your digital life. That's what you can think of it, right? This is why it's super important to think of it that way, that it is very sensitive. It is a gateway for yourself, but also for attackers to everything that you basically own online, at least. So devices at risk, I mentioned it briefly already, but what we're talking about here, primarily mobile phones, tablets. I like to focus on those because this is something that we have on us at all times, and we use it many times a day. It's also something that's very easy to misplace, lose. It can fall off your pocket in a taxi, right? Or can be pickpocketed or stolen. Obviously, computers, whether it's a work devices or personal computers like laptops, this is also a main thing. But also another category people sort of forget about, and I like to think about, is essentially anything that's connected to the internet that can be attributed to you or is used by you. So things like what I mentioned earlier, security cameras or home automation, modems or cars, right? All of that has internet connectivity, can be compromised one way or another, particularly if left unsecured or left with the default security configurations. We'll talk about all of that in a little bit more detail, but this is just something to be aware of. So how do devices get compromised? Let's understand that first before we can go into how we can protect ourselves. So I would talk about basically two categories: the physical access and remote access. Physical access, pretty self-explanatory. It's lost, stolen, or borrowed device. If you give it to someone to use for a minute or two, there's all that they could do. A lot of people think that just having a password or a PIN or biometric is enough to protect themselves, and in many cases it could be, but there's also many ways how this can be bypassed. So this is not the holy grail protection. So it's something worth noting. Plugging in unknown accessories, USB devices that you have found laying around, plugging into your computer. It is possible that attackers could craft malicious programs or payloads that will automatically execute as soon as you plug in the USB in. Also, chargers. You would see sometimes at airports or cafes there would be charging stations where you can charge up your phone, right? There are devices that they look like a charger, they act like a charger, but they actually do have like a mini computer in it that can send or receive data. So just simply plugging in your computer, your device, most likely mobile phone, to something like that could get you compromised. Or shoulder surfing, which is essentially someone looking at your screen from behind your back and trying to essentially snoop and see what passwords you're typing in, what sort of information you're accessing, and so on. Particularly if you're in a public transport in a crowded place, crowded cafe, and accessing sensitive information or typing in sensitive passwords to your bank accounts or something like that. There could be someone just snooping around and trying to see what you're actually typing in. Remote access, this one is completely different, and we talked about it a little bit earlier in the different talks today as well. But of course, things like phishing, so obviously receiving emails that pretends to be a known organization that you potentially maybe have some relationship with, creating a bit of a sense of urgency that something needs to happen, right? So, hey, I'm from Amazon, you have to reset your password by clicking this link because you have been compromised, right? Those type of emails would generally redirect you to a fake login page where you type in your real credentials, and the attackers will be able to receive it on the other end and reuse it. Delivery of malicious applications or malware, so emails with attachments that as soon as you open them or execute them, there will be a code executed on your machine that gives them remote access to it. Connecting your devices to rogue Wi-Fi access points, again, quite common, particularly in areas like conferences or even hotels where you can connect to a free Wi-Fi, which could actually act as a man in the middle, where anything that you're doing on your computer would be going through the attacker and then onto the internet, so they'll be effectively able to eavesdrop on everything that you're doing. And exploitation of known vulnerabilities, or advanced zero-day exploits, we call it. So this is a little bit less common, but still exists. So zero-day vulnerabilities or exploits is basically a vulnerability that nobody has, it's not publicly disclosed yet. Someone found it and didn't notify the vendor to patch it, and they're using it to exploit devices. All known unpatched vulnerabilities, so something that already is known as an actual issue, but because you're running the old version of the software, maybe you're still vulnerable, and hackers could exploit that. Okay. Typical attack timeline, also just to understand what the attackers actually do generally when they get access onto your device. So once they establish the initial access via the techniques we just discussed, the first thing that they would like to do is to establish persistence. So they will try to leave some types of backdoors open so they can come back anytime, even if you turn off your device or just kind of panic and try to disconnect from the internet and so on. They'll try to be very quick to establish that persistence. That next time you go online, they'll still have that backdoor open to come in at any time without needing to compromise you again via that initial foothold. And then, of course, once they have access, they would start doing the reconnaissance. So reading all the emails and all the documents to find any sensitive information that they could potentially use, such as passwords or any personally identifiable information. So photos of your passports, your Medicare card, anything that they could potentially use for identity theft. Then it goes to exploitation. Once they have information about you and your password and everything else that you're sort of doing on your device, they will try to use those passwords to access websites or applications or banks, anything that they can get their hands on. And obviously, the main driver for this is trying to steal your funds or steal your crypto, access to your bank, anything like that. So they'll be basically trying to use that information that they got to get access to any of the systems that you may be using. Also, what they'll be trying to do next is do a bit of a lateral movement. So either jump on different machines, whether it's on your network, if you're have multiple devices at home, or if your work device could compromise, they'll be trying to jump on your colleagues' machines or corporate network to basically gain more access and escalate and elevate it further, or launch targeted social engineering attacks from your device pretending to be you, so emailing your friends or colleagues, asking for information or spreading malware. And at the end, depending how sophisticated the attacker is, they'll be trying to cover up, hide the tracks, or erase any evidence that they may have left behind. Obviously, you can imagine the damage that would leave financial loss, so your compromised bank accounts, credit cards, your crypto keys, obviously loss of funds, right? Identity theft that I mentioned before, so your passports, your driving licenses, your utility bills, Medicare cards, anything that they can use to apply for loans on your behalf, or whatever else they need to do, commonly known as identity theft. Obviously, your privacy. We talked about security cameras and home automation. So if they have access to that, obviously they can spy on you, have access to your personal messaging, potentially use it to blackmail you, and reputation. As I mentioned, if they're using your device or your digital persona to email your friends or your colleagues, then it may have impact on that as well. So what can you do? It does all sound scary, right? But there are quite a lot of easy solutions, so easy things to do that we can protect ourselves from it. So first of all, make sure your devices are locked properly. Make sure you set a strong PIN, nothing which is easy and predictable. So no like 000, 1, 2, 3, 4, or even your birth dates, because these can be easily researched or found or guessed. Make sure this is something that doesn't really follow any patterns or is not too easily predictable. Same thing with passwords. Make sure these are long and complex passwords, which are not easily guessable. Make sure you have auto lock enabled. So with your mobile device, for example, if it's you haven't touched it for let's say 20 seconds, it will automatically lock. Same thing with your laptop. Make sure this is enabled. Never leave your devices unattended, particularly if they're unlocked. Right. So the good rule of thumb is whenever you're leaving your device, make sure you always lock it manually. If you can, basically don't leave it unattended, particularly in public spaces. Think of it as your wallet. You wouldn't leave your wallet on a table in a cafe. So treat the devices exactly the same. Be very careful what you plug your devices into. As we discussed earlier, use your own charger. Bring your own if you can. Do not plug it into unknown USBs or accessories, and obviously don't connect it to unknown Wi-Fi network access points. Assume someone is always watching. As paranoid as it sounds, it goes a long way. Use a privacy screen if you can. Privacy screen is essentially like a little, a sticker on your screen where if someone looks at it from the angle, they won't be able to see it properly, whatever's happening on your screen. So this goes a long way, particularly in crowded places if you're using your device quite often. Don't access any sensitive information in public, so try not to log into your bank accounts, for example, or type in any passwords while there's people around and could potentially be watching your device. And if you can, maybe even hide lock screen notifications. So these are notifications that you're getting on your phone whenever it's locked. That again goes to when, let's say, someone stole your device or you lost it, and they didn't manage to log into your device because, let's say, they don't have a PIN or a password. They would still be getting those notifications, right? And they may get some information from it. So make sure this is also disabled. Keep it updated. As I mentioned, there are vulnerabilities that exist that are being constantly patched, and vendors and apps they pushing out the updates to make sure it's all up to date and secure. But make sure you do have auto updates enabled, so you're always running the latest version of whatever software you're using. Do not trust every link that you have received through either social media or email, especially when it's delivered, and create some sort of a sense of urgency that gives you, either a deadline to do it by, or, if it's something you didn't expect to receive and all of a sudden tries to put you in an uncomfortable situation where you have to act, then it's usually a bit of a red flag. Use official applications and websites. Don't really download anything that's, cracked or, like a free versions of known paid apps otherwise, because it's usually something that may be compromised already. Enable full disk encryption. So full disk encryption is basically it encrypts your device while it's at rest or unlocked. So when you enable your device, when you enable PIN on your mobile device on an iPhone, for example, this is already automatically enabled. So just make sure that at least you have a PIN, right? Because that will already trigger all that in. Depending on your operating system on your laptops, you can have that enabled. Generally, by default, it already comes enabled, but go on and do some research depending on whatever operating system you're using, how to turn it on. And be prepared. So particularly for your mobile devices, enable Find My Device and also enable Remote Wipe. So worst case, let's say your phone got stolen, you can find it, right? Because if you enable Find My Device, you'll be able to go onto the app on a different phone to locate it where it is. And through that same application, you can also remotely wipe your device. So if you have any, sensitive information on it, you simply remote wipe it. Even if an attacker somehow manages to get access to your device, they won't be able to get anything in there because you'll be wiped, right? With this, you just be prepared that you may need to do it one day. So always have secure backups. So there's many different ways how you can do that. Probably the simplest way is to configure it with your device and on your laptop. So when you plug it in at home, it will be securely backed up to your computer. So then, if you lose it one day, you can wipe it out, and you wouldn't be really stressed that you lost all your photos and all your information from your phone, because then you can easily back it up from a device, from a home device. Password hygiene. We talked about passwords earlier, but just to reiterate it again, as it's very, very important. Use strong passwords. Do not reuse the passwords across multiple applications or websites. Use password managers if you can. Password managers are great. They allow you to, one, generate strong passwords, and also to keep record of those passwords and different websites in kind of like a vault, right? So you only have to remember one very long and complex password, and then that gives you access to everything else that you have. So rather than trying to remember them all, you just have one master password, and everything else is goes from there. Also change default passwords. But it's particularly important with things like modems and home automation and any other accessories that you have. They will usually come with very simple default passwords, password 123 or admin, things like that. So make sure that is always changed as a first thing that you do whenever you configure your accessories. Enable multi-factor authentication wherever possible. So multi-factor authentication, very simply, it's something that something that you have, or something that you are, right? Combination of those three. So something that is generally a password or a PIN. Something that you have would be for example, like a dongle, right, with that displays a secondary PIN that you can use, or even your phone that has that second factor authentication, so this displays a code that constantly changes, and something you are could be biometrics, right? So a fingerprint, for example. If you use a combination of two of those three at least, then you should be pretty good. Try not to use SMS for a multi-factor authentication, simply because there are attacks called SIM swapping. So basically, people can try to overtake your phone number. So let's say if you have a multi-factor authentication where you type in your username, your password, and you get a text message to your phone with a PIN to then type it in, and that completes your login to, let's say, your banking app. It is possible that your phone number could be essentially stolen, right? So if someone already has your username and password and all they need is the PIN, if they took over your phone number, then they'll be able to receive that PIN as well. So that's why it's better to actually use authenticator apps, for example, Google Authenticator, which is a separate application that is on your device, and you have to access it directly to actually be able to see those rolling codes. And in general, just be suspicious, vigilant, and question everything. It sounds quite paranoid, but it does go a long way. Assume that not everyone is nice, and people do have malicious intentions. So whenever something feels not right, it often is. So it's better to just question everything and just be a little bit more paranoid as a baseline, particularly around things like your personal device security and anything related to financial data and financial access. So the key takeaways: your device is your gateway to your online identity, as we talked, which makes it a very, very attractive target. Most attacks rely on quite simple techniques that we discussed, but there's many ways how you can easily defend yourself against it. And again, you don't have to be extremely technical to stay safe. Just those few simple things that we talked about that really, really go a long way and can make a life of attacker a lot harder. That's it. Happy to take any questions if we have time and if there are any.
That has been wonderful. Thank you so much. And I sort of wish that it went first now, because I think that is a note that we should all be leaning in on first and foremost as consumers. So thank you so much, Michal, for joining us today. It's wonderful. And we have come to the end of the Digital Intelligence Forum. It has been a long day from this morning up until now. So thanks for closing us off on a good note.